In this video, I'm going to show you some psychological and behavioral strategies that you can apply today to allow you to be more consistent with your exercise habits. You'll also be able to use these same techniques to install new habits in other areas of your life as well. One of the biggest challenges people face with exercise is getting your workouts in on a consistent basis. Often enthusiasm burns very brightly when pursuing a new fitness goal, but over time this flame can start to wane. And after a series of skipped workouts and shortcuts taken, this flame can go out entirely. To labour the metaphor a little bit longer, this quickly creates a vicious cycle because it's much harder to restart a new fire with damp kindling than it would have been to keep your initial flame going with small but consistent efforts over time. Because consistency is so key, I'm going to show you a very simple strategy that you can employ to keep you true to your exercise intentions. Strangely enough, this strategy actually comes from the world of stand-up comedy. It's an anecdote from the career of elite stand-up comedian Jerry Seinfeld. If you're not already a fan, Jerry Seinfeld is one of the most successful stand-up comedians in the world and is also the star of the wildly successful sitcom coined after his name. This anecdote was actually first told by a then fledgling comedian, Brad Isaac, who at the time asked Jerry Seinfeld if he had any tips that would help a young comedian be more successful. Jerry Seinfeld thought for a moment and said the way to become a better comedian is to create better jokes, and the way to create better jokes would be to write every day. Seinfeld then recommended that Isaac was to purchase a large wall calendar and a red marker pen, and every time he successfully completed his writing practice, he'd mark the day off with a big red cross. Seinfeld further noted, "After a few days you'll have a chain. Just keep at it and the chain will grow longer every day. You'll like seeing that chain, especially when you have a few weeks under your belt. Your only job is to not break that chain." An important consideration here is that Seinfeld didn't actually ask Isaac to gauge the quality of his jokes, but just to honour the consistent practice of writing. So whether you're writing jokes or, as with our intention, creating a regular exercise habit, it's the consistency that matters, not the quality or the performance of any one act or even the results those actions yield. Before we take a look at all of the nuances as to how to apply this to exercise, if you haven't already seen my video, How to Establish a Daily Exercise Habit, we should note that Seinfeld, knowingly or unknowingly, is describing the cue action reward habit setting method. The large unmissable calendar represents the cue. Now this triggers the act of sitting down for the writing practice and then crossing off with the red marker. That's an intrinsic reward and bolsters the consistency of the writing habit. To explore this concept through the lens of exercise, we should make a couple of considerations. Firstly, there are different forms of exercise, and you might not necessarily be served by doing every form of exercise on a daily basis, so this chain analogy doesn't have to go day by day. For example, resistance training. You may feel that you're best served by 3 workouts a week, so you could have your calendar represent Monday, Wednesday and Friday as your resistance training days. That would still represent a chain, but it wouldn't have to be a daily chain. This way you just block off the other days because those aren't days where you stand to break the chain because you weren't intending to do the exercise on those days. However, with something like a daily walking practice or a mobility practice, that may very well be something you want to set up on a daily basis, so the Seinfeld analogy works perfectly. So let's begin with a daily walking practice and then step by step build upon it other habits that serve your health and fitness goals. Because to build a broader health and fitness oriented lifestyle, you'll need multiple habits for exercise, nutrition and recovery. At this time, it's important to pay homage to both BJ Fogg and his Tiny Habits program, and of course James Clear and his best-selling book Atomic Habits, as I'm about to discuss some of the methodology outlined in both. Let's take a look at what happens on the physiological level when you engage in a behaviour on a regular basis. The more we engage in a particular skill or behaviour, the stronger our brain makes the connections between the neurons involved. That means over time, these behaviours, these skill sets are easier to carry out. And this is really the process of mastery. So the more we practice something, the better we get. On the opposite side, our brains will prune away the neurons and connections that aren't used on a regular basis. Now this is known as synaptic pruning. So what does this mean for habit setting? As an easy example, it's probably second nature for you to brush your teeth in the evening before going to bed. So if you had a goal of improving your coordination or proprioception, for example, you could say, every evening, whilst I brush my teeth, I'm going to stand on one leg for a given period of time. This way, you're bolstering and taking advantage of a habit that you were going to do anyway, that's really strongly ingrained behavior, and bringing in this new habit of this coordination, balance, and proprioception training whilst you're doing the original habit. So it's cost you nothing, but you're now working towards your health and fitness in a way that you weren't before, purely by continuing to brush your teeth. So this is a specific form of implementation intention which we can use to bolster one habit to form another, and this process is known as habit stacking. The habit stacking formula is after or before current habit, I will, new habit. So let me give you a real world example of this by sharing my current morning routine. So upon waking, I'll get a glass of water, then I'll go onto the foam roller and do 10 minutes rolling out and mobility. I'll then brew up a coffee, and then I'll sit down with that coffee and write out the plan for the day and some goals. I'll then go out for a walk around a local green space and think about those goals. If I get the opportunity, I'll sit for 6 minutes and do a little bit of a mindfulness, or what you might consider a meditation. I'll then walk home, and the first thing I'll do as part of my work day, which is still part of my morning routine, is to sit in and check in with my online clients. So that then creates the new habit set, which is the working day habit set. So it's the transition of the morning habit set to the working day habit set. As a quick side note, having a morning routine was something that I really yearned for in my first 10 years of being a personal trainer, because probably 6 days a week I needed to be at my first client session at 6 a.m. So that meant a 4:45 wake up. And to have a morning routine when the wake up time is 4:45, you're really then negotiating with yourself about stealing time from recovery and sleep, which I always felt was really the only real risk factor I had health-wise at the time. So I decided not to do that. The reason I say this is because even when logistics aren't perfect, you can still create some form of habit stacking and morning routine, or habit set for a different period of time. And let me show you how I did that even when things weren't ideal. So my morning routine when I had the 6 a.m. early starts went something like this. I would wake up, have the glass of water, I would have a 60-second cold shower, then get on the foam roller for 60 seconds. Now these were timed 60 seconds. I would brew up a coffee, I would get out in the car. In the car, I would play something positive, and then whether I got to my client early or not, really depending on traffic, I made sure I would get there on time. But if I got there early, say I got there 7 minutes early, for example, I then set that 6-minute timer to do a little bit of a mindfulness practice or a meditation practice. If I had 4 minutes, I did a 3-minute timer. I just took what I could get. And in this way, I kind of used those less than favorable logistics to still maintain some kind of morning routine, which at the time, despite the logistical scenario not allowing for the perfect morning routine, it still allowed what you would consider a fallback position where enough of the basic fundamentals of health were maintained, despite a little bit of sleep deprivation, of course, from time to time. The basic foundations of health were maintained, and that was a fair trade-off at the time. So you can see there how you could start with a daily walking practice and then use the leverage of habit stacking to stack another habit and then another habit, and all the while not losing any momentum because you've got that consistent practice, because one habit is stacked on an already consistent practice. So that really almost guarantees your success with the second habit because it's consistent, ingrained, established, and going to happen anyway. Of course, you can't plan your whole life like this. You can't just perpetually add habit on habit and go like that forever. That would become very inflexible and robotic. But what you can do is look for low-hanging fruit, look for opportunities in your daily regime and the things that are going to happen anyway, where you could see a potential cue or trigger that you could easily bolster a habit that would serve you on. To help exploit this low-hanging fruit and identify these opportunities, James Clear suggests sitting down with a pen and paper and drawing out 2 columns. The first column would be a list of all of the behaviors or habits that you carry out on a daily basis no matter what. The second column would be a list of things that happen or that happen to you on a daily basis no matter what. So once you have these 2 columns filled out, you'll be able to establish the highest leverage points for you to try to stack a new habit. I'd love to see your lists in the comments below, or perhaps the next habit you'll be setting for yourself after watching this video. You're going to want to be as specific as possible. For example, if you set the intention or the habit of doing a mobility practice at some point during your workday, this might not work out so well because the workday is going to expand and expand. You may find yourself with an hour to go in your workday and more than an hour's work to do. This way the mobility practice doesn't get an opportunity to be carried out. So you might say something like, once I've cleared my inbox for the first time in the late morning, I'll do a 10-minute YouTube mobility practice video. Before we conclude, I think it's important to note that these strategies could be used to establish consistent behavior in any area of life. For example, if you wanted more connection with your friends, you could set up that same calendar and say, a new habit could be that every day I'm going to have an important, meaningful conversation with one of my close friends, and you would just cross it off every day as you carry out that behavior. Likewise, with the implementation intention strategy, you could apply this to your work life. For example, if you get a little bit nervous before Zoom calls, you could say, 3 minutes before every Zoom meeting, I will take 5 deep breaths and say 5 positive affirmations. This will put you in a great state to do the call and present yourself in the best way. So there we have it. By combining the 2 strategies I've outlined in this video, you'll be able to establish a regular and consistent exercise practice, then leverage it to create further habits and a whole new healthy lifestyle for yourself, which is going to translate and contribute to success in all areas. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like me to help take the guesswork out of your health and fitness pursuits, please visit my website and book your free consultation where we'll discuss my online personal training service.